Well, joining us now to discuss more is Andrij Dobriansky with the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So many Republicans are now saying they're opposed to more assistance to Ukraine and have demanded that increased border security measures here in the U.S. be included in that funding request for Ukraine. What's at stake, though, if Ukraine doesn't receive U.S. assistance?
Everything's at stake. Ukraine has been the United States has been the biggest partner for Ukraine leading up into the war, because it delivered so many javelins, so many defensive weapons up until the full-fledged invasion in February of 2022. And now it's also a matter of international partners trying to figure out whether, in fact, Ukraine will be still a part of the international community. Or will the United States allow it to fall away? I would just like to, correct the record that the majority of both the Congress and the Senate, and that includes Republicans, want this bill to pass, no matter what the, individual votes may be. It's simply that there's a disagreement on how that happens. And right now, there's an enormous push from outside the United States by parties backed by Hungary, by Russia. There will be a conference led by Viktor Orban in the United States on Monday, simply because this is what they want to see. They want to see the United States give up on Ukraine, and that simply can't happen. And we hear that from members of Congress and the Senate.
And earlier this month, the Biden administration warned the U.S. will run out of money for Ukraine without congressional action by the end of this year. Today, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, in an interview with CNN, said Ukraine needs to accept giving up territory to Russia in order for this war to end. I mean, we've heard from President Zelensky that is absolutely off the table. But, I mean, if this keeps dragging on and the U.S. doesn't provide aid, is that a possible scenario for Ukraine, having to give up territory?
No, because that's not how this ends. We know how it ended in 2015, when the world said, let's freeze the borders and then let's see what happens after the fact. What happened is that Russia invaded after it built up more troops. It's just going to happen again. What needs to happen is some kind of level of justice. That's the number one goal. Forget about, land, forget about money. What needs to happen is justice. And how do we get to the point that we make sure that the people who are responsible for these crimes are prosecuted and put away, and make sure that they don't have the opportunity to do this again? We don't want to have Putin invade another country. We don't want to have the United States actually spend their blood and treasure on foreign countries because they couldn't support Ukraine with individual items. It's not money. Money goes to America. 90% of the bills are for money to America, American factories to make artillery, American factories to make rockets, American workers to make those rockets. It's the things that are going to Ukraine that are actually helping Ukraine. And for that, Ukraine is incredibly grateful.
Yeah, we've heard Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thank the U.S. for being such strong allies, and he's vowing to fight until Russian troops are out of Ukraine. Is there real fear among Ukrainians that Russia will take significant control of Ukraine if not stopped by the support of Western allies, especially the U.S.?
Well, in terms of what the Western allies are doing, everybody is helping out in one way or another. There are smaller countries than the United States that are giving more of their GDP to Ukraine in terms of weapons assistance, financial assistance. But it's really about making sure that the whole system doesn't fall apart. If Russia keeps on doing what it's been doing, and it's not just invaded Ukraine, it's invaded Georgia, it's invaded, it has troops in Kazakhstan, it has troops in Azerbaijan, it has troops in Moldova since it became Russia in 1991. All of this needs to stop if we're going to have a stable Europe. And a stable Europe, for people who don't understand what happened prior to the 20th century, a stable Europe means the prosperity that we've all been living in. And without that, we're talking about a really dark age for the rest of the world. No matter what happens in the global south, no matter what happens in southern or eastern Asia, if Europe falls to bickering the kind that it's had for a millennia prior to the middle of the 20th century, then we're talking about a grave, grave problem for the entire global economy. What Ukraine is saying is, we'll do this. we'll take the fight. So long as you make sure that you send us your best weapons. And up until now, we haven't even sent them weapons that can exceed 150 kilometers. So it's not just that we need the funding for the weapons that we've currently been getting, but we need to increase the type of weapons Ukraine has been getting so they can end this fight. Neither Ukraine nor the rest of the world wants to see this going further. I can agree on that.
Of course, and stopping, the funding, all this stuff would help Vladimir Putin and is what he wants. So, we completely understand why there is so much support still for continuing funding to Ukraine, and hopefully the lawmakers can kind of separate the two, sort out the issues, and keep the fight up. Andrij Dobriansky, thank you so much.
Thank you.